Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Saagar, I'm still on your line. We've got an amazing show today.
We have an amazing show today. We got Bob Cusack, Hill's editor-in-chief. We've got a Republican congressman from Tennessee, Adam Green, an Elizabeth Warren supporter. He's going to tell us why Crystal is wrong. And all that coming up today on Rising.
Saagar, my friend, tell the people what's on your mind.
Oh, well, I regret to inform you that Crystal and I are in the doghouse, everybody. Our crime against humanity is that we had the audacity to ask Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard whether Elizabeth Warren is qualified to be the commander-in-chief. For this sin, we've been sentenced to the disappointment of Washington Post journalists, the shunning of the Democratic establishment, and of course, the quiet support of all of you and millions of people across America who have similar concerns. You see, Elizabeth Warren is now the anointed one, much like one former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was. In this town circa 2016, everything on the left was filtered through what will they think? They being the Clinton campaign, their coterie of allies throughout town. They wouldn't let you tweet about Huma Abedin and her pedophile husband. They wouldn't let you express the slightest questions about the Clinton Foundation. And they wouldn't ever forgive you if you brought up Hillary's ever-changing record on, well, pretty much everything. Luckily, I'm not on the left, so I can say whatever the hell I want. And I can call out those for targeting my co-host, for expressing some very valid concerns about Elizabeth Warren's candidacy. We had the audacity to point out that Elizabeth Warren has struggling support amongst the African-American community, that she obviously benefited from lying for years about her fake Native American heritage, and that her waffling between progressive and centrist very much puts her at risk at this general election. Just like 2016, you get unpersoned if you mention any of these things in the mainstream media. Even worse, if you elicit a response that is critical of Warren, then your journalistic style gets called into question. Just take a look at Dave Weigel of the Washington Post response when we asked if Tulsi Gabbard thought that Elizabeth Warren was prepared for the job as commander-in-chief. We're apparently lazy for asking a simple question, not giving caveats of another candidate's record in real time. I don't blame Dave for this criticism. Remember all the times I've said the media has become the ally of the ruling class? This is the perfect example. What does Dave Weigel care about how we ask questions about Elizabeth Warren? Unless, of course, he supports Elizabeth Warren. You can judge the question for yourself. Let's take a listen.
So you've been critical of Senator Harris in the past and even went so far as to question whether she was prepared to be commander-in-chief. We now see Senator Warren really rising in the polls. She's first in a lot of national polls and several state polls as well, early state polls. Do you believe that she's prepared to be commander-in-chief?
I haven't seen much come from her in the way of what kind of leadership and decision-making that she would bring to that most important responsibility that the president.
The wagons are circling around Elizabeth Warren as she rises in the polls, and the upper-middle-class white liberals who populate cable news, the Washington Post, and other places in elite media could not be more excited about it. You see, they defend Joe Biden against Donald Trump, just like you see with the current coverage of the Ukraine scandal, but their heart is not really in it. Joe is not one of them, and that's reflected in his poll numbers, which we talk about here every day. Warren has a plan for that, and even better, she's on their side for social justice causes. From their point of view, she's somebody who gets it, and any questioning of her record is right-wing heresy. Forgive me, but I thought it was a primary election. I watched people get utterly eviscerated in 2016 by Donald Trump, and as a right-winger, I thought that was a good thing. It was a clarifying moment for the Republican Party, a reckoning of the GOP elite with where their voters actually stand, what they care about. It was a shot across the bow of the bipartisan consensus here in Washington. It will remain a seminal historical event. The difference in that coverage that time around was that the media didn't have a dog in the fight. They delighted in Trump killing off Republicans, and then they fumed when they couldn't kill him off when it actually matters. Democrats and their media allies are doing themselves a gigantic disservice by trying to neutralize any criticism of Elizabeth Warren. I have highlighted her immigration and cultural extremism on this show many times. Enough GOP ammo for a lifetime if she were to become the nominee. That's before we even get to Pocahontas and what it tells us about her record, and I haven't even mentioned campaign finance there. I've seen this movie many times before. It appears that Democrats and media have learned nothing. And Crystal, I mean, it's just so funny because, you know, the slightest criticism of her, and we get lit up. And it's like,
We were so mad.
and it's like, I didn't know that, that there were these anointed gods in our politics that aren't allowed to be
You
criticized.
did know actually.
Well, I
you did know.
but, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
I knew,
what's
but-
funny is like, it was kind of a question, it was kind of an obvious question. She'd gone after Kamala.
Yeah.
It was the most impactful vote of any of the debates. So the question is, okay, you're back on the debate stage. Who are you going to go after? If you ask her directly, she's not going to really come out and say it, right?
Yeah, so we tried to suss it
Elizabeth
out. And I
Warren
think
is a
we
good
did
guess,
suss it
and
out.
I think we
She
were
says,
right.
I haven't seen any qualification. And by the way, her foreign policy record is very much up for debate. From the discussion I've seen on the progressive left, her military spending, some of the things she said about Israel in the past. She hasn't exactly, Bernie's got a 40-year record of floor speeches on the subject, and her whole contrast is that she's got a plan for that and all of that. I haven't heard anything.
It's not entirely clear where she stands.
No.
And so I think that's valid. And I also wanted to get in with Tulsi the fact that Tulsi obviously puts foreign policy at the center of her campaign. I also thought it was important to get at the fact that it hasn't been a central focus, even though it really should be, which I think is also an important point to make. But my apologies to anyone who was deeply offended by the audacity of asking that question.